welcome to this session of the Creative Life. I called it, at first I called it the art and science of creativity, but then I realized that what I was really talking about was a creative life. The difference between living an ordinary life and a creative life, which is very, very interesting. I think too many people live ordinary lives, and they're not terribly happy with it.
That applies to most people.
What's that?
That applies to most people.
It applies to most people, exactly. And I think we struggle because we are constantly trying to be that which we are not. And that is what the ordinary life is all about. You're trying to make a certain amount of money because this is as much money as you should make. You're trying to have a certain position because this is a position you should have. You try to dress a certain way because that's the way the fashion industry say you should dress. You try to do certain things, go certain places because that's where everybody goes. If you want to see what ordinary people look like, just look at the malls on Saturday and Sunday. That's where they're all at. Go in the morning and traffic jam. That's where they're all going. And go in the afternoon in the traffic jam. They're all coming back. They're all doing the same thing, one after another. You know, I like Stephen Wright. Anybody know what Stephen Wright is besides me? I think he's one of the best comedian philosophers that there is. And he says, I was watching the Indy 500, and it occurred to me that if they had gotten up earlier, they wouldn't have to go as fast. And that is the way that most people live their lives. They think that the faster they go, you know, the more they are accomplishing. And it's not that. Speed is just speed. Quality is a whole different thing. So we're going to see how to step out of speed and into quality in our lives and find out how to live from that creative space that each one of us has. And I thought the first thing that pretty much, you know, I enjoyed Julia's tape on Joseph Campbell and the Hero's Journey. By the way, Julia's a source of that, of that CD.
We all enjoyed that.
We enjoyed that. We all watched it together at one point. And Joseph Campbell has a real good point as far as like the cyclicity of life, that it goes around sort of in a circle in which we are at the end of the journey discovering ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter this inner journey. I'm going to talk today about the cages of creativity. What is this that keeps us from being creative? Anyway, Leonardo da Vinci had a habit or custom, it is so said in his history, that he would go to the vendors in Florence, the street vendors, and he'd purchase the birds that they were selling, and then he'd release them. That's what it was all about, because he felt that it was the bird's nature to fly, and to keep a bird in a cage to him was a crime. And so it is with our own creativity. Creativity is like a bird that we keep inside a cage. And today we're going to find out how we build that cage and what keeps us locked in there so that we cannot experience our own creativity, because it's something that we discover in ourselves. And as I've used the term before, discovering is to take the cover off of something that's already there. And we're going to get at creativity through meditation and contemplation and art. Drawing, too, and discussions that we will have as we delve into the cells from our creative side of the brain. So the first thing that I like to do at the beginning is to get a sense from everybody as to what they feel creativity is. So if I were to ask you, David, creativity to you means what?
When I feel like I'm being creative, I feel like I'm trying to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think beyond the normal to create something that will be fun and make me feel good.
Okay, amazing. Interesting words David uses. He starts with the word feel. Okay? So creativity is a feeling. And he finds it outside the box. It's something that is found out here. So perhaps this is the cage that Da Vinci's talking about, this box. When we think outside the box, we're thinking outside the cage. So I totally agree with you. And also, it's fun.
Yes.
It's fun to be creative. So when people talk about how stressful their job is, they're obviously not doing something creative. Or they're not connecting to their jobs in a creative way. I say, I'm so stressed out. I spent all this time at work. I work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. Doctors brag of working 80 hours a week. You know, making a living, they lose their lives. And a lot of people do that too. They're in that Indy 500 we were talking about before. They all wake up as if they've woken up late, and they start speeding through their day. And the next thing you know, they're 65 and 70 years old and 90 years old, and they just ball up and die without having sung their song, like Wayne Dyer says, they die with their music in them. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. I think by virtue of being here tonight, we are proving that we are interested in being extraordinary people, not ordinary people. Because the ordinary people right now are having dinner and watching television and watching the nightly news, and then they're going to sit down to some sitcom. After that, put their kids to sleep, go to bed, wake up, start speeding around the track again tomorrow morning. So part of being creative is to take some time to step outside the box, like David says, and contemplate our lives. Look at what's going on, as opposed to wake up in the morning in the middle of whatever's going on. Which is how most people start up the day. They start up, what do I have to do today? It's like, somebody please read me the script. I don't have the slightest idea what I'm supposed to do today. Tell me what to do. Okay, and I have some speculations and science fictions about that later, which I'll share at some other point, about what's going to happen to government over time. But at any rate, Mimi, what is creativity for you?
Getting lost in the moment, not so time doesn't exist when you're in that creative mode.
No time.
No time.
Yes, very good.
You're enjoying it so
Fan-
much that you're not watching the clock saying, oh, finish it.
Fantastic. It is the place where time seems to fly. We're being creative. Julia, what about you? What's creativity for you?
I want to say freedom to express.
Freedom to express. Okay. Freedom. Notice I'm picking out key words from each one of you, and we're forming together. See, an interesting thing about group synergy is that together we're forming a collage about what creativity is. If we, I think it might have been Joseph Campbell who said it, or somebody else, that if we have an object in the middle and we look around it in a circle, each one of us has a sliver of the truth. It may have been Stephen Covey, come to think of it. And that's why when we come together as a group, we get a more complete picture of the truth, because each one of us has a segment thereof. And that's why it's so important as we meet people to listen to their description of life, to their description of the truth, to what it is that makes them tick. Because through them, we get to see the other side of the mountain. Like that song, the bear went over the mountain, and he wouldn't have to go over the mountain if he just took a new bear from the other side, that would tell him what the other side was like. Okay, so anyway, Victoria, what's creativity for you?
Creativity for me is like losing myself. Or gaining a part of myself that it's like when I dance.
Right.
It's like I would rather be nowhere else than right then, right there. So I'm totally present, but I'm in a way losing
Aha.
myself.
So
Losing.
we're hearing two other key words here: presence and dance. I love that one. I totally agree. Creativity is a dance. It is a dance. It's not a race. It's not an ordeal. It's not crawling through broken glass on your hands and knees. You know, it is a dance.
And I have no sense of evaluating or analyzing. Like when I'm writing, I am like getting a download. I'm so present with the inner spiritual part of who I am.
Right,
Even when I dance,
right.
when I write, when I make these little creative things that I make with my hands,
Mhm.
there is no evaluation and no analysis
Right.
of who I should be other than who I am.
So
there.
we know there's zero judgment.
Except if I stepped on someone's toes, then there's a judgment.
Right. Well, and that's such another important thing, you know, because to judge is to be without freedom. And when we judge or others, or when we are judge ourselves, we stop having fun too. You see, there are some things that there's ways of describing something in the positive, what it is, and there's ways of describing it by what it is not. You know, and Victoria very wisely says it is a dance. It involves no judgment. Try dancing by counting your steps. It looks awkward as hell. You know, if you're dancing and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, after a while you look like RoboCop. You know, so that doesn't work at all. So to dance, one has to suspend judgment. One needs to stop being that witness that we often are to ourselves, that is only there as a heckler. Anybody have a heckler besides me? Inside it? Yeah, we all do. It just stands in the corner and it just criticizes everything we do. Every darn thing we do, criticize, and that is one of the bars in that cage that keeps us locked up. We have learned to be critical of ourselves. And Leonardo da Vinci said that to the beginning artist, and I see us all as beginning artists right here, for the beginning artist, criticism is premature. Okay, he didn't believe in criticizing the young artists. You know, he said, express. Later on, you will perfect. But you begin by giving yourself permission to express. If you start criticizing right off the bat, you never get to feel your full expression. You see that? And so many people do that. They say, and we're going to discover that when it comes to drawing. We had some really interesting revelations. I did the Spanish class 2 weeks ago. We explored art and drawing. And people that thought they couldn't draw came out with the most amazing drawings. You know, that were just absolutely beautiful after they were able to step outside of that box. You know, so once they released themselves from the box, they came out with some absolutely incredible drawings. So we will be doing that in here too. That's going to be one of the ways in which we'll tap into creativity. So creativity, Deborah, what is that for you?
I think it's when I access an untapped part of myself.
Okay.
And I'm totally immersed in the activity, and the sense of time isn't really an issue. I mean, I could just spend hours and hours and hours and hours. And then if I do make a judgment about it, it's positive.
Okay, all right. So one of the things that Deborah's talking about is a connection to self. And we're going to talk about the difference between self and ego. Those are whole two different things. I think what Victoria was talking about earlier was the absence of ego. At that point in time, when you said I disconnect from myself, what you really were referring to is I disconnect from my ego, from that part of me that I'm supposed to be, you know, and Deborah is saying, and then I connect with what is. See how we all have a little piece of the truth. I mean, it's beautiful to see it all come together. Okay, so talk to me, Angela.
Well, we've gone over it before, but my two things that I thought of were not judging yourself, just being free and not judging,
Mm-hmm.
and expression.
Expression. Okay, I love that one. Let's go with expression. expression. Okay, very, very interesting, and you will observe that as we talk and we look at each other, which is an important part of getting to know each other, is observe each other as we speak, that indeed creativity is expression as opposed to impression. You see that? We express who we are as opposed to be trying to impress other people or be impressed by others. Okay?